I never imagined that my life would shatter into 1,000 pieces on a regular Tuesday morning. For 15 years, Stephanie and I built what I thought was a solid marriage in our cozy Portland home. We had 2 beautiful children, Lily and Jake, a comfortable lifestyle, and what seemed like a bright future ahead. Maybe I was blind to the warning signs, or perhaps I just refused to see them, but nothing prepared me for what was about to happen. Before I continue with how my entire world collapsed in a single day, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to stick around for what happened next. When I look back at what I once believed was a perfect life, I cannot help but wonder how I missed what was happening right before my eyes. I had dedicated the past decade and a half to building a stable foundation for my family. As a software developer at a respected tech firm in Portland, I worked diligently to provide everything we needed. Our 4-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood had been our home for nearly 8 years. The backyard featured a swing set I had assembled myself when Lily was 4 and Jake was 2, and the kitchen renovation we completed 3 years ago had been Stephanie's dream project. Our daily routines had a comfortable predictability to them. I would wake up at 5:30 every morning to squeeze in a quick workout before helping get the kids ready for school. Stephanie would prepare breakfast while I packed lunches. After dropping the kids off, I would head to the office, while Stephanie returned home to work on her graphic design projects. She had built a respectable freelance business that allowed her the flexibility to be home when the kids returned from school. At least, that was the arrangement we had agreed upon years ago. I took pride in how well I balanced my professional responsibilities with my family life. I rarely missed school events, coached Jake's soccer team every spring, and made sure to schedule regular date nights with Stephanie. Just 2 weeks before everything fell apart, we had celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary with a weekend getaway to the Oregon coast. I surprised her with a silver bracelet that I had saved up for months to buy. She seemed happy as we walked along the beach and reminisced about our years together. She smiled, kissed me, and said all the right things. I had no idea she was already planning her escape. In hindsight, the warning signs had been accumulating for at least 6 months. Stephanie had grown increasingly restless and distant. She started hanging out with a new group of friends. I barely knew women she met through an online forum for entrepreneurs and free spirits. Whenever I asked about them, she would give vague responses about expanding her network and finding her tribe. I wanted to be supportive of her having her own social circle, so I never pushed for more details. The late nights started becoming more frequent. Working on a big project became her standard explanation as she tapped away on her laptop until the early hours of the morning. When I would wake up and find her side of the bed empty, she would be downstairs with her headphones on, so engrossed in whatever she was doing that she barely acknowledged me when I checked on her. Physical intimacy between us had dwindled to almost nothing. When I tried to initiate conversations about it, she would say she was just tired or stressed about deadlines. Her social media activity changed dramatically too. She became obsessed with accounts of travel influencers and self-proclaimed life coaches who preached about breaking free from societal expectations and discovering your authentic self. Her own posts, once filled with family photos and home projects, shifted to philosophical quotes about personal freedom and finding your purpose. I noticed these changes but convinced myself it was just a phase, or perhaps a mild midlife crisis that would pass with time and patience. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was scrambling eggs while Stephanie poured orange juice for the kids. Lily, our 14-year-old, was complaining about an upcoming math test, while Jake, 12, was excitedly talking about the science project he had been working on. It was all so normal, so routine that the bomb Stephanie was about to drop seemed even more surreal in contrast. After the kids grabbed their backpacks and headed out to catch the school bus, I began gathering my things for work. Stephanie stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed with an expression I had never seen before, detached, resolved, and somehow both nervous and calm at once. "I need to talk to you before you leave," she said in a voice that sent a chill through my body. I sat down at the kitchen table, still holding my travel mug of coffee as she remained standing. I cannot do this anymore, Mark. I need to find myself to figure out who I am outside of being a wife and mother. I feel like I have been living someone else's life for 15 years. The words hung in the air between us as I struggled to comprehend what she was saying. What are you talking about? I finally managed to ask. I am leaving today. My bags are already in the car. She spoke with a detachment that made it seem like she was discussing a grocery list rather than dismantling our family. I feel trapped here, unfulfilled. There is so much more I want to experience in life before it is too late. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, spilling across the table and onto the floor, but neither of us moved to clean it up. What about the kids? What about our family? My voice sounded distant and hollow to my own ears. I will call them later today and explain. They are old enough to understand that people need to follow their hearts sometimes. I will be back when I figure things out. I just need some space and time. With those words, she turned and walked out, leaving me frozen in place as I heard her car start and drive away. The rest of that day passed in a blur of disbelief and panic. I called in sick to work, unable to form coherent thoughts, let alone code complicated software. I sat in our living room, surrounded by family photos that now felt like artifacts from a different life, trying to process what had just happened. The hardest part was yet to come, telling Lily and Jake that their mother had left. When they came home from school that afternoon, full of stories about their day and homework complaints, I gathered them in the living room. There is no guidebook for explaining to your children that their mother has abandoned them without warning. I tried to be honest without being bitter, to explain something I myself did not understand. Lily broke down in tears, her teenage composure crumbling as she asked again and again if it was something she had done. Jake went quiet, his face hardening in a way no 12-year-old's face should ever have to. He simply nodded, went to his room, and closed the door. Later that night I heard him crying through the wall, but respected his need for privacy in processing his grief. Those first days were a crash course in single parenthood. I had always been an involved father, but Stephanie had managed countless details of our domestic life that I now had to figure out on my own. What time was Jake's dental appointment? Which detergent did Lily need for her sensitive skin? How did I balance work deadlines with school pickups and grocery shopping? I was determined not to let my children see how utterly lost I felt. We established new routines. I started working from home 3 days a week. I learned to braid Lily's hair for volleyball games. I figured out how to help Jake with his pre-algebra homework, despite not having touched the subject in decades. We ate a lot of pizza and takeout at first, but gradually I expanded my cooking skills beyond breakfast foods. Throughout it all, I made sure the kids knew they could talk about their feelings any time, while hiding the depth of my own pain behind closed bathroom doors or late at night when they were asleep. Stephanie's calls to the kids were brief and superficial. She would ask about school and activities, but offer little information about where she was or when she might return. She never asked to speak to me, and the children never volunteered to put me on the phone. She had effectively compartmentalized her old life and her new adventure. About a week after she left, I received the first financial shock. A notification popped up on my phone, a $5,000 withdrawal from our joint savings account. The next day, there was another for $3,500. I immediately called our bank, but was informed that as a joint account holder, Stephanie had every legal right to access those funds. Panicked, I logged into all our accounts to assess the damage and discovered multiple large credit card charges for airline tickets, hotel rooms in Miami, and restaurants I had never heard of. I reached out to a financial advisor friend who helped me secure what assets remained. We opened new accounts in my name, only transferred what funds we could, and froze the joint credit cards. By the time we finished damage control, nearly 60% of our savings had vanished. Money that had been earmarked for the kids' college funds, our retirement, and the roof repair we had been planning for months, gone with no explanation. Friends tried to help in their own awkward ways. Some brought casseroles and offered to watch the kids. Others awkwardly avoided mentioning Stephanie altogether, as if she had died rather than chosen to leave. A few made thinly veiled judgmental comments suggesting I must have done something to drive her away. The isolation of being suddenly single in a social circle of couples was yet another adjustment I had not anticipated. My sleepless nights became an unwelcome routine. I would lie awake rehashing our marriage, searching for the moment it all went wrong, wondering what I could have done differently. During these dark hours, I cycled through grief, rage, confusion, and fear. How would this affect the kids long term? Would I ever trust anyone again? Could I really manage everything on my own? The morning alarm would ring before I had answers to any of these questions, and I would drag myself through another day of pretending to be okay. The truth about Stephanie's new life emerged in the most modern of ways through social media. 3 weeks after she left, Lily came to me with her phone, her face, a mixture of hurt and anger. "Dad, you need to see this," she said, handing me the device. There on the screen was Stephanie's Instagram page, now filled with photos of beautiful beaches, upscale restaurants, and nightclubs. In almost every picture, she was with the same man, tanned, muscular, and visibly younger than me. The captions included hashtags like #living my best life, #no regrets, and #new beginnings. In one particularly painful image, they were kissing on a yacht with a caption about finding true connection. I later learned from a mutual friend who could no longer keep the secret that his name was Jason, a 28-year-old self-proclaimed life coach and aspiring social media influencer. Their affair had apparently been going on for at least 4 months before Stephanie left. The friend had known but felt caught between loyalties. The betrayal cut even deeper, knowing that someone in our social circle had watched me plan our anniversary weekend while aware that my wife was cheating on me. The impact on our children was impossible to miss. Jake, once outgoing and enthusiastic, became withdrawn and quiet. His science teacher emailed to express concern about his falling grades and lack of participation. Lily's pain manifested as anger. She got into arguments with friends, slammed doors, and pushed boundaries that had never been issues before. I scheduled appointments with a family therapist who specialized in parental abandonment, hoping to give them tools to process feelings I barely understood myself. One night, Jake came into my room after midnight, his eyes red from crying. He sat on the edge of my bed and asked in a small voice, "Did I do something wrong, Dad? Is that why Mom left?" It took every ounce of strength not to break down as I pulled him into a hug and assured him that nothing about this situation was his fault, that his mother's choices reflected her issues, not his worthiness of love. I promised him that I would always be there, that we would get through this together. After he fell asleep beside me, I allowed myself to cry silently for the innocence my children had lost. 6 weeks after Stephanie left, I was beginning to establish a new normal for our fractured family. The kids were still struggling, but therapy was helping, and small moments of laughter had started to return to our home. I had taken back control of our finances and was carefully rebuilding our savings. My boss had been surprisingly understanding, allowing me a flexible schedule that accommodated my new parenting responsibilities. We were surviving, even if thriving still seemed a distant goal. Then came the call that changed everything again. Lily burst into the kitchen where I was attempting to bake cookies from scratch, an effort to create some weekend normalcy with her phone clutched in her hand and an expression of confused excitement. Mom called me directly Dad. Not just a text this time. She talked to me for almost an hour. I carefully kept my expression neutral, not wanting to dampen her obvious happiness at the renewed connection. "That's great, honey. What did you talk about?" Lily's face clouded slightly as she sat at the counter. "Mostly about her. She is in the Keys now, that is in Florida. She said she has been soul-searching and healing her inner child, whatever that means." Lily rolled her eyes in a way that reminded me she was still very much a teenager, despite everything she had been dealing with. "Did she mention when she might come see you and Jake?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "That is the weird part," Lily said, her forehead creasing. "She said she will probably come home soon because she is almost done exploring, and that when she does, everything will go back to normal because Dad will forgive me. He always does." The cookie dough I had been mixing suddenly felt heavy in my hands. The casual assumption that I would simply welcome her back after everything, the abandonment, the affair, the financial devastation, landed like a physical blow. She said you would just forgive her. Those were her exact words. I set down the bowl before my shaking hands could drop it. Lily nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She said it like it was nothing, Dad. Like she just borrowed the car without asking or something. Not like she left us. She said you never stay mad at her, so she is not worried. She paused, looking down at her hands. Is that true? Are you going to let her come back like nothing happened? The question hung between us, loaded with implications about what I would be teaching my daughter about self-respect, about boundaries, about the consequences of betrayal. In that moment, I realized that how I handled Stephanie's potential return would shape my children's understanding of relationships for the rest of their lives. No, honey, I said finally. That is not what is going to happen. Your mother made choices that have consequences, and I need to make choices now that protect you, Jake, and myself. That night, after both kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and began to sort through my options. The marriage I had committed to was gone, if it had ever really existed at all. The woman I had built a life with had shown me exactly who she was and what she valued, and it wasn't our family. I needed to accept that reality and act accordingly. The next morning I called a divorce attorney, who had been recommended by a colleague who had gone through a similar situation years earlier. During our consultation, I laid out everything: the abandonment, the affair, the financial exploitation. Document everything, the attorney advised. Screenshots of social media posts showing the affair, bank statements, showing the withdrawals, text messages about her plans to return. And start thinking about custody arrangements. Given the circumstances, you have a strong case for primary custody, if that is what you want. I spent the next week gathering evidence and preparing for what I needed to do. I saved copies of bank statements showing Stephanie's withdrawals. I took screenshots of her social media posts that clearly showed her relationship with Jason and her carefree attitude about leaving her family. I compiled a timeline of her limited contact with the children. With each piece of documentation, my resolve strengthened. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about protection of my children's emotional well-being and our financial future. When all the paperwork was prepared, I sat down with Lily and Jake for an honest conversation about what was coming next. I explained in age-appropriate terms that their mother and I would be getting divorced, that it wasn't a decision I made lightly, but that it was necessary. Will we still get to see Mom, Jake? Asked, his expression unreadable. That will be up to you and her, I assured him. I will never prevent you from having a relationship with your mother, if that is what you want. But she has made choices that mean we cannot be a family in the same way we were before. To my surprise, both children seemed more relieved than upset. Lily reached over and squeezed my hand. We know you tried, Dad, she said with a maturity beyond her years. But Mom did not. 2 days later, I received a text from Stephanie that confirmed everything Lily had told me. Coming home this weekend. We need to talk. Been doing a lot of thinking. Looking forward to seeing you and the kids. No apology. No acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. Just an expectation that she could waltz back into our lives on her terms. Reading between the lines of her brief message, and based on what friends had seen on social media, it was clear that something had changed. The posts with Jason had stopped about a week earlier, and her most recent photos showed her alone with increasingly philosophical captions about lessons learned and returning to what matters. I suspected the reality was far more mundane. The money had run out, or Jason had tired of her, or both. She was looking for a soft landing, and she expected me to provide it. After all, I always forgave her. Not this time. I spent the days before her arrival finalizing preparations. The divorce papers were ready. My lawyer was on standby, and I had mentally rehearsed what I needed to say. The night before she was due to return, I barely slept, but for the first time in 2 months, my insomnia wasn't from heartbreak. It was from nervous anticipation of finally standing up for myself and my children. The sound of a car pulling into our driveway sent a jolt through my body. I looked out the window to see Stephanie stepping out of a taxi, not the car she had left, in which raised even more questions. She had considerably less luggage than when she departed, just one suitcase and a carry-on bag. Her hair was lighter than before, and she wore an outfit I had never seen. But her confident stride up the walkway suggested she expected to be walking back into her old life. Jake and Lily were in the living room, having decided they wanted to be present for this moment. We had discussed what would happen, and they had assured me they were prepared. As the doorbell rang, I gave them each a reassuring nod before going to answer it. "Mark," Stephanie exclaimed with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She moved as if to embrace me, but I stepped back, maintaining the doorway as a barrier. Her expression faltered slightly. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "It is my house, too." "The children are in the living room," I said calmly, stepping aside to let her pass, but making no move to help with her bags. She swept past me into the house, her perfume unfamiliar and too strong lingering in the air. When she saw the kids, she broke into a wide smile and rushed toward them with arms outstretched. "My babies, I missed you both so much." Lily stood up but kept her distance, while Jake remained seated on the couch, eyes fixed on his hands. Neither moved to hug their mother. The awkward tableau held for a moment before Stephanie's arms slowly lowered. "What is going on? Aren't you happy to see me?" she asked, confusion evident in her voice. "Why would we be?" Lily asked quietly. "You left us." Stephanie's face hardened briefly, before softening into what I recognized as her practiced expression of reasonable patience, the one she used when she thought someone was being emotional or irrational. "I needed some time for myself, sweetie. Sometimes adults need space to figure things out. But I am back now, and we can be a family again." She turned to me with an expectant smile. "Right, Mark." I walked to the side table where I had placed a manila envelope. "Actually, I have something for you. Consider it a welcome home gift." I handed her the envelope, watching as confusion crossed her face. She opened it, pulling out the stack of legal documents inside. As she read the title page, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage," her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to anger. "What is this? Divorce papers? Are you serious right now?" Her voice rose sharply. "After 15 years of marriage, you are doing this because I took a little time for myself." 2 months is not a little time, Stephanie. And it wasn't just time you took. It was $60,000 from our savings. It was emotional stability from our children. It was trust and respect from our marriage. She looked at me with wide eyes, then glanced at the kids, seemingly realizing for the first time that they were witnessing this confrontation. Her strategy visibly shifted as she adopted a softer tone. "We should discuss this privately, Mark. The kids do not need to hear adult problems." "We already know everything," Mom Lily said, her voice stronger than I had heard it in weeks. "We know about Jason. We saw all your posts." Stephanie's face drained of color. "You had no right to spy on my personal life," she snapped, before catching herself and forcing her expression to soften again. "I mean, that was a mistake. I was confused and lost. But I have learned my lesson now. The lesson that Jason dumped you, or the lesson that you ran out of our money." The words came from Jake, who had finally looked up, his young face set in a firm expression that broke my heart, even as it filled me with pride at his courage. "That is not what happened," Stephanie insisted, though the flicker in her eyes suggested otherwise. "I realized what was important, my family, my children. I made a mistake and I am sorry." It was the first time she had said those words, but they rang hollow in the context. "We do not want you here," Jake continued, standing up to join his sister. "You left us. You chose something else over us. Dad has been here the whole time, taking care of us, making sure we are okay, even though he was hurting too. We do not want you back." Stephanie's confident demeanor began to crack. She looked frantically between the children and me, as if searching for an ally and finding none. Her breathing quickened, and tears, whether genuine or tactical I couldn't tell, began to form. "You turned them against me," she accused, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You poisoned my own children against me while I was gone. You did that yourself," I responded calmly. Every day you chose not to call them. Every post you made flaunting your new life. Every dollar of their college fund you spent on luxury hotels. Those were your choices, not mine. Her composure shattered completely then. The tears came in earnest as she sank onto the couch, the divorce papers clutched in her hand. You cannot do this to me. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? That is not our problem anymore, Lily said quietly. You figured out how to leave. You can figure out how to live with the consequences. Stephanie's breakdown escalated from tears to sobbing to something approaching hysterics. She cycled through anger, pleading, guilt-tripping, and bargaining, promising changes and fresh starts, then switching to threats about fighting for the house and custody. Through it all, the three of us remained calm and unified, a family strengthened by the very adversity meant to break us. Eventually, when it became clear that her emotional display was not going to change our position, Stephanie gathered herself enough to ask if she could at least stay the night until she figured out other arrangements. The Holiday Inn downtown has vacancies, I informed her, having anticipated this request. I called this morning to check. I will pay for 3 nights. That should give you time to make other plans. You would put the mother of your children in a hotel, she asked incredulously. You put yourself there when you walked out on us, I replied simply. After she left, the three of us ordered pizza and watched movies together, allowing ourselves an evening of simple normalcy after the emotional storm. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The weight of uncertainty finally lifted from my shoulders. The days and weeks that followed brought their own challenges. Stephanie initially threatened to fight the divorce terms. But when faced with the evidence I had gathered, and advised that her abandonment and financial exploitation would not play well in court, she reluctantly accepted a settlement that was fair, but offered her no special considerations. The kids decided they did not want regular visitation with their mother, for the time being a decision the family court respected, given their ages and the circumstances. Lily agreed to occasional phone calls, while Jake preferred minimal contact. I made it clear to both of them that their relationship with their mother was separate from mine, and I would support whatever boundaries they felt comfortable establishing. Slowly, our lives began to find a new rhythm. I adjusted to being a full-time single parent, learning through trial and error how to balance work-household management and the emotional needs of 2 traumatized teenagers. The kids had good days and bad days, but the stability of knowing where they stood seemed to help them heal. We continued with therapy both individually and as a family, working through the complex emotions of betrayal and abandonment. 6 months after Stephanie's failed homecoming, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked different, the expensive highlights gone from her hair, her clothing more subdued. She told me she had moved to a small apartment across town and found a job at a local marketing firm. She asked about the kids with a hesitancy that suggested she had finally begun to understand the magnitude of what she had lost. I provided brief, polite updates but maintained the boundaries we had established. As we parted ways, I realized I felt nothing for her anymore. Not anger, not longing, not even pity. Just a detached acknowledgement of someone who had once been central to my life, but now existed on the periphery. That evening, as I helped Lily with college application essays and listened to Jake describe his new position on the school basketball team, I was struck by how far we had come. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something else, a deeper appreciation for loyalty, honesty, and the family we had rebuilt from the wreckage of betrayal. You know what Dad, Lily said as she closed her laptop after finishing her essay. I think in a weird way Mom leaving was actually good for us. Not because it didn't hurt, it did, but because it showed us how strong we really are. Jake nodded in agreement. And it showed us who really cares about us. Their insight brought tears to my eyes, not from sadness this time, but from pride and a profound sense of gratitude for the remarkable young people they were becoming, despite everything they had endured. The journey from that terrible Tuesday morning to where we are now has been the hardest of my life. But standing on the other side, I can finally see what I could not see then, that sometimes the most painful endings make way for the most authentic beginnings. That forgiveness is not always about reconciliation sometimes. It is about releasing yourself from the weight of someone else's choices. And that family is defined not by legal documents or shared DNA, but by who shows up day after day in both calm and crisis. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone you trusted completely betrayed you? How did you find the strength to move forward? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of people supporting each other through life's toughest challenges. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.